If we don't think it's okay to separate puppies or kittens from their mothers for the first 2 to 3 months of their lives for developmental reasons, why do we think it's okay to separate infants from their mothers in the hospital room? Adoption agencies have spent so much money and so many years on their propaganda that the average American actually thinks that a signature on a piece of paper somehow fundamentally changes the brain chemistry of an infant to the point where it believes these two strangers in a room are actually now its parents as opposed to the person it spent 9 months growing inside of. And before we go any further, I have to say that in the United States, adoption did not used to look like this. In fact, prior to the 1920s, women who relinquished their children for adoption kept them and took care of them for the first 3 months of life. This was done, of course, because back then adoption was actually a form of child welfare, which to say adoption is a form of child welfare today is a complete joke. In the 1920s, everything changed because a literal human trafficker named Georgia Tann entered the picture and changed the world of adoption forever. Georgia Tann was a social worker who facilitated adoptions, and she realized very quickly that there was a lot of money to be made in adoption because back then, adoption was not a business. It cost $7, about $200 in today's money, to adopt a child, and Georgia Tann realized that you could sell children to rich people in New York and California who were struggling to have children for thousands of dollars. Word got out that Georgia Tann was the person to go to for adoption because she had all kinds of children available for adoption, and she was marketing these kids like they were the pick of the litter. Thanks to Georgia Tann, the demand for adoptable infants in the US was at record highs, and she was struggling to keep up with the demand, so she resorted to a little thing we in the biz like to call kidnapping. Yeah, Georgia Tann stole a bunch of children and sold them to wealthy families in other states. People eventually realized Georgia Tann was a literal human trafficker, but she ultimately died before she could be prosecuted, and the really unfortunate part of this story is that rather than learning the lessons of hey, let's not steal children and sell them for a massive profit, adoption agencies kind of just realized they could follow Georgia Tann's playbook and make a bunch of money doing it. This screenshot really says it all. Homes for unwed mothers, along with local health departments, were advocating for the mothers to keep their children for 3 months because it was important to keep those children with their mothers. Georgia Tann took them as quickly and early as she could, as close to birth as possible. Adoption agencies also continued Georgia Tann's practice to this day, 100 years later, I might add, of sealing adopted people's birth certificates and reissuing new documents that say that the people who adopted us are the people who gave birth to us. Today, we separate infants from their mothers, not in service of the infants or their mothers, but in service of a multi-billion-dollar adoption industry. Because why do child welfare when you can get rich instead?